My mother knelt, her hands trembling, eyes wide with disbelief, as she finally saw me. 2 years. 2 years since I'd left the States. A desperate flight to what I hoped would be a new beginning, a world away from everything I knew. But standing in the bustling arrivals hall of Changi Airport, her gaze sweeping past me repeatedly as she clutched a sign bearing my name, the realization hit. She didn't recognize me, not even standing barely 3 feet away. I whispered her name, a raw, almost unfamiliar sound. She spun around, her eyes locking onto mine, and then a gasp, a collapse to her knees. "Is this really my daughter?" She choked, her voice a fragile thing, and the tears I'd held back for so long finally burned. It began subtly, as most slow poisons do. Growing up in America, I was Amy, a seemingly ordinary girl. What I craved, more than anything, was to be truly seen, truly accepted. My story really started in childhood, a time when everyone, from my kindergarten teachers to visiting relatives, would pinch my cheeks and coo. "Look at our Amy, so chubby, so lovable, so comfortable to hug." Back then, I didn't understand. I just felt the squeeze, the laughter. Now, the memory is sharp, cutting. It wasn't praise, it was an assessment, a quiet branding based on the soft contours of my body. I inherited my mum's ample figure, a genetic legacy she wore without a hint of shame. "A little fat is proof of happiness, no?" she'd always say, her smile wide and bright. I can still picture it, still hear the unwavering conviction in her voice. Our dinner table was a testament to that philosophy, laden with creamy pasta, fluffy pancakes, mountains of fries, all, she declared, cooked with love. Looking back, those meals, those comforting, calorific expressions of affection, slowly but surely became the bars of a cage. Primary school was fine, mostly. Kids then cared about who you were, not what you looked like. I might have been slow on the track, but I was a master of hide and seek. "Amy's a good friend," my classmates would say, and for a while, that was enough. That fragile peace didn't last. Middle school. The body thickened further. The stares began. The first time I heard those words, "You need to lose weight," it was during a skip rope test in PE. I barely managed a few pathetic hops before my knees buckled. The teacher, without a flicker of empathy, announced to the whole class, "Too heavy. Your ankles can't take it, can they?" The classroom erupted in laughter. I stood there, mute, my face burning. Later, in the corridors, the whispers started. "What on earth does she eat to get that big? Don't stand too close, you might catch it." Those words clung to me, a constant hum of shame. But lunchtime was the worst. Lining up, the kids in front and behind would deliberately widen the gap, leaving me in a sterile bubble of isolation. Every time I spooned food onto my tray, I'd hear them, or feel their eyes. "Are you really going to eat all that?" Accompanied by those uncomfortable, judging glances. I'd go home sometimes and cry, but Mum never seemed to grasp why. "You're the most beautiful daughter in the world," she'd reassure me, pulling me into a hug that only made the ache worse. Her comfort felt like a denial, a refusal to see the real problem. Why did she only love this version of me? Why wouldn't she help me change? The questions circled endlessly in my adolescent mind. High school brought a new level of cruelty. During a maths class, after I'd finally managed to answer a question correctly, a snide voice from the back whispered, "Guess her brain isn't just full of calories after all." Another day, I found a diet pill advertisement tucked into my locker. I'd spend hours hidden in the school toilets, sobbing. Eventually, I mustered the courage to tell Mum I wanted to lose weight. Her reaction was a crushing disappointment. "You're just well built, darling. No need to diet." That was the first time I truly yelled at her. Do you have any idea how much I suffer at school? After that, I took matters into my own hands. I scoured the internet for weight loss tips, bought dodgy diet pills with my pocket money. The misguided attempts, the extreme deprivation, they wrecked my body. Headaches became a constant companion, dizzy spells frequent. It wasn't long before the school counselor called me in. "You seem quite distracted in class lately," she observed, gently leading the conversation to my mental and physical state. With her help, I started therapy, but school life didn't improve. If anything, I now carried the added label of being problematic. One evening, I finally exploded at Mum. "It's all your fault. These foods, these eating habits. Why did you raise me like this?" She finally cried, her face crumpled in silent tears, but by then, I was already a shattered mess. After that day, the atmosphere at home was thick with unspoken tension. Mum tried to change the dinner menu, swapping out the rich dishes for healthier options, but it felt futile, like building sandcastles against an incoming tide. In high school, I started avoiding mirrors altogether. The bathroom mirror was permanently draped with a towel, and I refused every photo opportunity. I drifted further and further from my classmates, finding solace in the furthest corner of the classroom, spending lunch breaks buried in books at the library. This couldn't be my life, I knew. I finally sought professional help, and the diagnosis came back: moderate depression. With that doctor's note, I spent more time at home, holed up in my room, watching videos. One day, the algorithm did its job, recommending videos from Singapore. At first, it was just curiosity. I clicked, and then another, and another. I was captivated. These Singaporean women weren't just focused on weight loss. It was a holistic concept of self-management. It wasn't just about appearance, but about skincare, diet, deportment, even how they spoke. What truly drew me in was the underlying philosophy. They managed themselves out of self-love, not because they hated themselves due to others' judgment. Watching those videos, a radical thought bloomed in my mind for the first time. I want to go there, to a place where no one knows me, to restart. Singapore felt utterly foreign, and that unfamiliarity was its greatest appeal. A place where my past was unknown, a blank canvas. The yearning grew, an insistent hum beneath the surface of my despair. Sometime before high school graduation, I started to map out my future. University felt like another dead end. Even if I got in, I wasn't sure I could truly restart there. Then, those Singaporean videos resonated again, a quiet invitation. What if I left? What if I became a new version of myself in a completely new environment? At my graduation dinner, surrounded by family, I announced my decision. My mother shot up, aghast. What nonsense is this? Singapore? What kind of place is that? You don't know anyone there. But then, she looked into my eyes, her voice softening. Do you really want to go? I nodded. My father, ever the quiet observer, stepped in. You must have thought about this for a long time, haven't you? If this is the change my daughter needs, I'll help you. And just like that, I packed my bags. It wasn't an escape. It was a deliberate step towards a new beginning. My Mandarin was rudimentary, barely enough for basic greetings, but even that felt symbolic. A new language for a new start. The day I got my ticket to Singapore, I stood before a mirror for the first time in years. Looking at my reflection, I whispered, "Now, I go to find my true self." At the airport, I hugged my parents tight, reaffirming my resolve. I would change. Landing at Changi Airport, the reality hit with a jolt. The Singapore I'd imagined from videos and searches was vastly different from the concrete, vibrant sprawl before me. The expansive airport, the cacophony of unfamiliar Chinese announcements, the hurried throngs of people. It was overwhelming. I couldn't breathe. My first day, I genuinely thought I couldn't make it. The smells, the language, the expressions, even the way people walked felt like a threat. In America, I was just a fat girl. Here, I was not only fat, but an entirely out-of-place foreigner. That first night in my rented apartment, high up on a hill overlooking the city, I stared out the window. Endless blocks of flats, glittering lights stretching into the horizon. It felt like I'd landed on another planet. For the first time, the question truly surfaced. What exactly am I doing here? Alone on the bed, I stifled my tears, reviewing my plan. I had burnt my bridges. My graduation money, my father's support, all invested. There was no turning back, no thought of giving up. The next morning, I found the Wellness Center. A sleek, modern building near Marina Bay Sands, far more upscale than I'd imagined. I was terrified to even enter. I stammered a ni hao in my broken Mandarin to the reception, and to my surprise, the staff replied slowly. In English, "Don't worry, we have foreign members here too." Just like that, I signed up for a 4-month program. Seeing the fees, my heart sank. I needed a job, and fast. My first experience at the center was a shock. The private trainer looked at my body composition data, a knowing expression on his face. Wow, a truly Western diet, huh? My face flushed. But his next words were a lifeline. Don't worry, everyone who comes here struggles at first. We'll change, slowly, together. My first meal plan was alien. Not salads, not boiled chicken. It was Singaporean-style clean eating. Brown rice with various stir-fried greens, unfamiliar steamed fish, and tofu. It took time, but strangely, I slowly adapted. My father's support wasn't enough. I started looking for work where my English would be an asset. I found a part-time job at a small cafe in the CBD. At first, I couldn't even pronounce the menu items, misunderstood customer orders, constantly made mistakes. Every time I messed up a coffee, I imagined people talking about me. But, surprisingly, Singaporeans were incredibly polite. "Are you okay? Take your time, no worries," they'd say. One customer, after I'd completely botched his order, leaned in and said, "It's not easy working in Singapore from overseas. You're doing really well." In that moment, I almost cried. Slowly, I grew closer to my colleagues. Pei Jun, one of the baristas, took me under her wing. "Amy, today I'll teach you latte art," she'd say, staying back after closing just to show me. These small acts of kindness accumulated, and my Mandarin began to improve, little by little. The commute between work and the center, the long uphill walk to my apartment. It felt like hell every day. Waking up at 5 a.m. for morning classes, working at the cafe in the afternoon, then back to the center in the evening. This routine was physically grueling. My muscles ached, I was constantly exhausted. Sometimes, I felt utterly defeated, but the hardest part was the loneliness. Every night, after that punishing climb, I'd lie on my bed, memories of my family in America washing over me. Scrolling through social media, seeing old friends' university photos, I'd eventually drift off to sleep, the nagging question echoing in my mind. Was my decision right? Into the second month, small changes began. Standing in front of the mirror each morning, my face looked a little different. The puffiness had receded, a faint jawline starting to emerge. I'd memorized the cafe menu, and I could even chat with customers in simple Mandarin now. A group of university regulars, eager to practice their English, specifically ordered from me. One day, Ya Ting, a bright, bubbly girl among them, asked, "We're going to Bugis Street this weekend to hang out. Want to join us?" It was the first time anyone had invited me out for fun. My trainer had also encouraged me to have a change of scenery once in a while. So, that weekend, I went to Bugis Street. The streets throbbed with life. I tried street food, something I'd never dared before, and for the first time, I went to a karaoke lounge. Ya Ting and her friends patiently explained Singaporean culture to me. That day, I truly, genuinely laughed in Singapore for the first time. By the third month, the changes were undeniable. At the cafe, a colleague commented, "Amy, your skin looks so bright these days. What are you using?" I looked in the mirror. My complexion really had improved. The regular routine, the Singaporean diet, the center's holistic approach, it was all working. My clothes were looser, the numbers on the scale steadily dropping. The trainers at the center noticed, "Amy, keep this pace, and in 6 months, you'll be a completely different person." One day, Ya Ting saw the changes in my appearance at the cafe. She became my personal Singaporean beauty evangelist. After work, she took me to cosmetic shops, recommending everything from basic skincare to makeup. "Amy, your skin is so fair. This shade will suit you perfectly." After my first proper makeover, my eyes seemed brighter. Following Ya Ting's advice, I tied my hair up, revealing a jawline I hadn't seen in years. Even the regular customers started noticing, offering unsolicited compliments. "You've become so pretty." At first, those words felt alien. I didn't trust them. Before, pretty was either a euphemism for cute or a comfort for my size. But this time, it felt different. It felt genuine. I started taking selfies, something I hadn't done in 10 years. A photo Ya Ting took of me by the bay was shocking. There was a smiling stranger in the picture. That was me. I sent it to my parents, and my mum's reply text read, "You look so happy." In that moment, I understood. I had changed more than just my weight or my appearance. Hope had finally, truly, bloomed in my heart. I was smiling in Singapore, and it was real. About 6 months after arriving in Singapore, the physical transformation was undeniable. I meticulously followed the Wellness Center's program, adopted a regular lifestyle, and fully embraced the Singaporean diet. The numbers on the scale plummeted, and my reflection was that of a new person. But the more significant change was happening within me. When cafe customers would say, "Amy, you look so pretty today," I didn't know how to react. It was awkward. In America, the only praise I ever heard was my mother's well-meaning but ultimately invalidating comfort. "You're fine as you are. You're good enough." Here, in Singapore, people acknowledge the tiny, daily shifts. The cafe manager even noticed, "Amy, you seem so much brighter these days, and our customers love you for it." These compliments, small and steady, built up my self-esteem, brick by brick. I stopped staring at the floor when I spoke, able to hold eye contact now. When I made a mistake at the cafe, I no longer panicked, but laughed it off. My voice, in casual chats with friends, grew more confident. Yating and her friends brought me into their world. Movie nights, book clubs, even Mandarin study groups. At first, I was frustrated, understanding only snippets of their conversations, but they were patient, always waiting for me. During this period, I started learning Hanyu Pinyin, marveling at the tones and the intricate structure of Chinese characters. Learning each character felt like crafting a tiny piece of art. One day at work, I almost spilled coffee on a customer's shirt. In America, that would have been a disaster, a fresh source of humiliation. But the customer, instead of getting angry, worried about me. "Are you okay? You must be so scared." In that instant, tears welled up. That small act of understanding, that genuine thoughtfulness, warmed me to my core. From then on, I started observing Singaporeans more closely, seeing beyond the surface. Yating always paused, thought before she spoke. Pei Jun, no matter how busy, smiled genuinely at every customer. They practiced thoughtfulness, naturally, instinctively. Time passed, and my physical transformation continued. Under my trainer's guidance, I started strength training. My posture improved, my body becoming more toned. Yating and her friends constantly suggested new styles of clothing. Every weekend, they'd help me pick out outfits. In America, I'd hidden in oversized, shapeless clothes. In Singapore, for the first time, I tried on fitted clothes. But then, a strange emptiness settled in. The more I focused on external changes, the more I felt something missing. Luxurious clothes, perfect makeup. I still felt like I was wearing a mask. Something was still incomplete. One afternoon, near the cafe, I saw something that stopped me cold. A Singaporean girl, with a body type similar to my old self, walking with her friends, completely without makeup, laughing freely. What struck me was how everyone around them treated her. Her friends draped their arms around her, listened intently when she spoke. Passers-by didn't give her strange looks or whisper behind their hands. She was simply loved, just as she was. That night, back in my apartment, I stood before the mirror and meticulously removed all my makeup. I looked at the face staring back. Did I truly love myself? Or was I just chasing a version of myself that others approved of? That question hammered at my very core. I needed to learn to accept and love the original me, just like that girl on the street. The next day, I started looking at Singapore differently. The people I met on the street, the customers at the cafe, the members at the wellness center. I stopped seeing just their appearances. I started noticing their attitudes, their actions. True beauty, I realized, wasn't about a flawless exterior. It was about the people who made me smile, the genuine kindness they radiated. Singaporean friends' humble way of speaking was captivating. I couldn't quite articulate it, but it was brimming with consideration and respect. Their clean habits, their punctuality, the thoughtfulness when they shared food, everything took on a new light. Naturally, I started wearing less makeup. No heavy foundation, just a light tinted moisturizer. My eye makeup became minimal. My clothes shifted from glamorous to simple, comfortable. My focus turned inward, to my health, my thoughts, my way of speaking. One cafe customer once told me, "You're truly kind." That compliment resonated deep within me, strangely more satisfying than any praise for my looks. To be appreciated for my character, my attitude, that joy was immeasurable. After a year in Singapore, my trainer offered me a special opportunity. He wanted me to share my success story as a case study for other foreign members. I was terrified, but I found the courage to accept. As I prepared my presentation, I reflected on my entire journey. On the day of the sharing, I started in simple Mandarin, then switched to English to tell my story. The biggest lesson I learned in Singapore, I told them, is that true change starts from within, not just from physical appearance. Of course, body changes are important, but they're not enough. Respecting yourself and having a considerate heart towards others, that's what truly matters. After my presentation, many other foreigners started approaching me, not just for diet or fitness tips, but for advice on adapting to Singapore and navigating cultural differences. Sharing my experiences honestly, I felt myself growing even more. My Mandarin skills improved dramatically. Now, I could not only have simple conversations, but also express complex emotions. At the cafe, Pei Jun and I chatted with customers in Mandarin, no longer hesitant. We even joked around, laughed more. Fully adapted to Singapore, I decided to take on a new challenge. I enrolled in an intensive Mandarin course for foreigners offered by a local university. My days were a blur of working at the cafe and attending evening classes, but those hours were invaluable. In the classroom, I met people from all over the world, and learning Mandarin together opened up a whole new world. Among them, I grew particularly close to Sarah, an American exchange student. Sarah's background was uncannily similar to mine. She too had struggled with weight issues, bullied back home in Texas, and had chosen Asia for a fresh start. We deeply resonated with each other's stories, often meeting up to talk, taking long walks by the East Coast Park. Sometimes, when we missed American food, we'd cook dishes from home together. One day, Sarah asked me, "Amy, how come you hardly wear any makeup now? Since I came to Singapore, I've started wearing more. People here seem to put a lot of emphasis on appearance." I thought for a moment before replying. Before, makeup was a shield, something to hide behind. But now, I genuinely like who I am. Makeup is just one way to express myself, not a place to escape. Sarah's eyes lit up. Wow, that's amazing. I want to be like that too. Honestly, I still can't leave the house in the mornings without makeup. In that moment, I understood. What I had found in Singapore wasn't just a superficial change in appearance, but a profound way to accept and love myself. And now, I could share that with others who struggled as I once did. When I first arrived in Singapore, the frangipani trees were in full bloom, but I don't remember if I even noticed their beauty. A year later, they were blooming again. I went flower gazing with my friends. Amidst the vibrant petals, Yating took a picture of me. Looking at that photo, I was stunned. Jeans, a simple white t-shirt, hair tied back, no elaborate styling, just me, smiling naturally. I genuinely felt beautiful. The smile in that picture was entirely different from any I'd worn before. It wasn't forced. It was truly, deeply happy. I was the first to feel that change. My smile wasn't because of my appearance. It was because my heart had changed. That night, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. My reflection, once so alien and uncomfortable, now felt at ease, familiar. "I think I've truly found myself," I told the person in the mirror. Suddenly, a thought struck me. I wanted my parents to see this face. Since leaving America, I'd never video called them, only texting or occasional voice calls. Mom had suggested it many times, but I always made excuses. But now, it was different. I wanted my parents to see my transformation. Not just the physical changes, but the new me, the confident daughter I had become. My heart pounded. What if I surprised them by going home? And so, I started planning my trip back to America. I asked for leave from the cafe manager, promising I would return. As I booked my flight, mapped out my plan, a sense of lightness filled me. I felt ready to return, head held high, to the place I had once felt I fled from. Standing before the mirror, I made a silent vow. Now, I go back as my true self. In that moment, this entire journey gained its profound meaning. The external changes were merely the beginning. The real transformation had happened within my heart. The day I decided to go back to America, the day I booked my flight, my heart thumped like a drum. 2 years had passed, and the thought of returning home was surreal. I told my colleagues at the cafe, and they all celebrated with me. Pei Jun gave me a packet of authentic Singaporean tea. "Give this to your parents," she said. Yating helped me pack, carefully picking out the best outfits to show my American friends. When I called my parents to tell them I was coming home, my mum's voice cracked with emotion. "Really? I'll finally get to see my daughter." I laughed. "Yes, Mum, but I want to surprise you at the airport, to show you in person." The truth was, I wanted to see her astonished face. Waiting for my flight at Changi Airport, I looked back at the past 2 years. The fear, the loneliness when I first arrived, and then the slow, steady process of change and growth. Every moment had become a part of me. Without even realizing it, Singapore had become more than just a foreign country. It had become a part of my life. Landing at JFK Airport, a strange, conflicting sensation washed over me. A mix of unfamiliarity and familiarity. The English announcement sounded odd now. The people's body language and mannerisms felt different from what I had grown accustomed to in Singapore. It was a reverse culture shock. After immigration, I walked towards the arrivals hall. I saw my parents in the distance holding up a sign. Mum was scanning the crowd, her eyes darting everywhere, searching, yet she couldn't see me, even though I was right there. I stood quietly in front of her for a moment, then softly called out her name. Hearing my voice, she turned, her gaze fixed on me, and then, right there in the middle of the busy hall, she fell to her knees. "Is this really my daughter?" she cried, her hands trembling as she cupped my face. Dad, too, stared, disbelief etched across his features. In the car on the way home, Mum kept touching me, as if to confirm I was real. Is this really our daughter? How did you change so much? I laughed. Yes, Mum, it's really me. Only my appearance has changed. But that was only half the truth. Not just my appearance, but everything inside me had transformed completely. At home, neighbors gathered, their faces a mix of awe and curiosity. Questions poured forth like a flood. How did you get so thin? What did you eat in Singapore? Did you get plastic surgery? Their questions made me uncomfortable, as if my worth was still purely defined by my outward changes. That night, our whole family gathered, and I shared my story, from the initial terror of arriving in Singapore to my job at the cafe, my friendships, and all the lessons I had learned. By the time I finished, everyone was in tears. Mum squeezed my hand tightly. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were suffering so much. Dad, his eyes glistening, put a proud hand on my shoulder. The next day, my American routine began. Everything felt strange. The food was too sweet, too salty. People's voices seemed loud, their mannerisms jarring. What was strangest of all was how the politeness and consideration I'd grown accustomed to in Singapore felt out of place, almost awkward, here. Meeting old friends was even more complicated. High school acquaintances, who had once ignored me, suddenly reached out, eager to meet. I initially declined, but eventually agreed to meet a few at a cafe. They were stunned by my transformation, showering me with compliments. Wow, Amy, you're so beautiful. Tell us your diet secret. Their words sounded hollow to me now. Why did they care now? Was my value truly only determined by my appearance? These thoughts swirled in my head. Meeting Cassie, my best friend from high school, was even more complex. She had called me crazy for wanting to go to Singapore, tried to stop me. Now, she said, you were right, you're amazing. But her eyes felt distant, unfamiliar. Suddenly, I truly appreciated the sincerity of Yating and Pei Jun. After 2 days of catching up with old friends, a strange pressure settled over me. The initial excitement of being back in America slowly faded, replaced by a growing emptiness inside. Lying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, I wondered, was coming back the right thing to do? Why do I feel so out of place? On the third morning, I woke up early, determined to go for a walk, just like I did in Singapore. The park near my house felt different from the vibrant East Coast park, quiet, sparse, lacking that familiar buzz of life. I suddenly yearned for the bustling Singaporean mornings, the commuters, the joggers by the bay. Back home, preparing breakfast, the plain toast felt empty without the familiar accompanying dishes. Despite the conveniences of American life, images of my Singaporean routine kept surfacing. The perfectly made latte at the cafe, sharing street food with Yating, the peaceful walks by the bay after work. Those memories, once faded, now became sharply defined. My heart, I realized, was already in Singapore. The person I had found there, the meaning I had discovered in my life, it was too precious to leave behind. America was my home, but Singapore was where I had found my true self. At a family dinner, I quietly announced my decision. I want to go back to Singapore. A brief silence fell over the table. Then Mum spoke, her voice soft. Is that truly where your happiness lies? I nodded. Yes, Mum. I want to work and live there. I feel like I can truly be myself there. Tears welled in her eyes, but this time her expression was different. It was tears of understanding, of acceptance. Dad, with his usual quiet smile, said, Okay, you'll do well wherever you are. We just want you to be happy. In that moment, a heavy weight lifted from my heart. The night before my second departure for Singapore, my parents hosted a small farewell gathering, just family and a few true friends. It was a warm, intimate affair. Mum pressed a small gift box into my hand. Inside was my grandmother's old necklace. Wherever you are, always remember your roots, she said, and I couldn't hold back my tears. Landing at Changi Airport again, a strange sense of calm settled over me. The familiar Chinese announcements, the familiar smells and sounds, they welcomed me like an old friend. It felt like coming home. At the cafe, Pei Jun and my colleagues threw a welcome back party. Yating hugged me laughing. See, you really have become Singaporean. 8 years have passed since then. I eventually left my cafe job. After graduating from university, I joined a foreign company here, my bilingual English and Mandarin skills proving invaluable. I'm a senior specialist now, and I love this life. Every morning, I walk by the East Coast Park. On weekends, I buy groceries at the wet markets, and I've even learned to pickle vegetables. Sometimes, I think I've become more Singaporean than the Singaporeans themselves. Occasionally, being a foreigner here presents its own challenges, but it's all part of my journey now. Pei Jun got married and had a child. I'm the godmother. Yating went to Canada for further studies, but we still keep in touch. Sarah and I meet up occasionally, sharing our continued growth and transformations, our friendship a cherished bond. My parents visit Singapore once a year, and I still go back to America occasionally too. One evening, standing on my apartment balcony, looking out at the glittering lights of Singapore, I thought about the girl I used to be. The life I'm living now, it's something she couldn't have even imagined. It's surreal. The once chubby American girl now lives in Singapore as a confident woman. This country gave me more than just weight loss or a change in appearance. Singapore taught me how to love myself, how to be considerate of others, and most importantly, what true happiness really means. Every night before I sleep, I feel a profound gratitude. Singapore is the place where my life truly began again.